when you keep on thinking back to the four members of our community that we're still looking for, that's where our energy is right now.
Some difficult days in Nova Scotia as the search goes on for two children, a youth and a man who have been missing since Saturday. The vehicles they were in were submerged in the catastrophic flooding. We're continuing to watch that search and we'll bring you updates. Now, for the latest information on the situation in Nova Scotia, I do want to now bring in Premier Tim Houston. He joins us from Mahone Bay in Lunenburg County. Thank you for making time for us today, Premier.
Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
You know, you've been touring areas that have been deeply impacted by the flood. I'm just looking at some of the updates here. The municipality of the district of Lunenburg has declared a state of local emergency. Wondering if you can tell us more about what you've seen as you've been touring these areas.
Yeah, sure. Thanks so much. I mean, a lot of damage. Water is a very powerful thing. There's no question about that. Lots of homes flooded, basements flooded, damage to bridges and roads, significant damage to infrastructure around the province. No question about that. And of course, right now, it's hard for me to think about anything but those 4 missing people that the search continues for. But the damage is extensive. The rains came fast and they came furious, and we got to about 3 months worth of rain in less than 24 hours, and it's made a big mark on our province.
In terms of gaining access for crews, even for yourself, to assess the damage, how difficult has that been, as now it's sort of in recovery waiting for waters to recede in order to try to get to these areas?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, so the storm, the bulk of the storm really hit overnight Friday into Saturday. So, as we were, I was at one volunteer fire department yesterday. They said they had over 100 rescue calls on Friday night. So you can imagine the difficulty. Nighttime, it's dark, it's rain, there's fast running water. So, Friday and into Saturday, it was very, very difficult conditions. But the response from the first responders, the law enforcement, the volunteer fire departments, search and rescue teams, community members, in many cases, I mean, some of the volunteer firefighters that I talked to, the rescues that they did, certainly put themselves in some pretty frightening situations, but they did it. They got through and they saved them. But the road crews, the natural resource crews, they've been out all since Friday night and assessing damage, and a lot of repairs have been done already. It's remarkable. I was at the Motorsport Park last night where hundreds of people had been stranded all weekend because of a bridge washout, and that public works team was there pounding getting that bridge, and they were able to get a bridge structure in place and get people out of there. So there's a lot of work to be done for sure, but there's the effort has been just phenomenal.
Have you had an opportunity at all to speak with the families of those individuals who are currently missing, and perhaps other individuals who have, of course, suffered from some of the damage that we've been discussing too? And if you can share with us what some of those conversations have been like.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't spoke directly to the families. I know the stress that they're under right now, and we're trying to be respectful of that. I've certainly been speaking to some of the first responders on the scene, and what you would imagine about the emotions that they're feeling is exactly what they're feeling. It's incredibly difficult, but they're not gonna. They're putting everything they have into this, and the effort is intense, but it's a significant effort. We want to make sure we're still praying for a safe return and hoping for some miracle that somebody is somewhere waiting to be found, and that those efforts are taking place. But talking to people who have been rescued, or did rescuing, and certainly it's some of these stories definitely make you proud to be Nova Scotian. But right now the search continues for the 4.
We've been having a lot of conversations because Nova Scotia has been hard hit by a number of natural disasters just in the past few months, the past year. I'm wondering also, some of the communities that were hit by the wildfires are also now seeing the impact of this flooding. How are people coping? You talk about the emergency responders. Certainly, they must be absolutely exhausted. But also for yourself, how has this been, trying to be at the helm of being really in recovery mode for such a long period of time and continuing to face these natural disasters?
Yeah, I mean, no question. We had the expression Nova Scotia strong, but as somebody said to me, do we have to keep proving it? Certainly, in really the short time I've been Premier, we had major flooding in Cape Breton, and then we had Hurricane Fiona, and then we had the devastating wildfires, and now these floods now, and the impact. So every one of those situations has required people to really step up and help their friends and neighbors. And as I say, their first responders just really, they don't wait. The phone rings, they jump and they get going. So, but it's a lot for sure. But we keep going forward. We'll get through this. We'll rebuild through this. We'll continue to search and pray for safe return of four people. And then the rebuilding will continue for sure. But there's no question. There's no way to say it. And it's a lot we've had to deal with.
Now, you have, as I read, applied for disaster financial assistance from the federal government. This is something that perhaps you've become a bit of an expert in doing, as it's something that you've had to do a number of times, as you've outlined there. I remember the last time that you and I spoke, there were some questions surrounding the last time that paperwork was filed. It was incomplete, which led to a little bit of a delay in getting assistance. I'm wondering now, this time around, how smooth it was, what those discussions have been like.
Yeah, I have to say, I mean, certainly we've had our experiences with the funding, and also with the supports from the federal government. But this time around, I mean, as people really started to understand the magnitude of the floods during overnight Friday or early morning Saturday, and trying to desperate attempts to locate people, to account for people, I have to say the Coast Guard they mobilized really quick. Search and rescue teams mobilized really quick. Cormorants were in the air for air surveillance and stuff. So the getting the boots on the ground part from in cooperation with the federal government, that went well this time for sure. I would say that, and it continues. We know there's a lot of rebuilding to do. We know it will be expensive. The bill will be there for sure when the time comes. But that's why I'm sure there'll be discussions back and forth on that, and that'll work itself out one way or the other. Right now, it was the urgency to get people out of precarious situations. A couple campgrounds had flooded; those were very scary situations, and the footage from Coast Guard rescues, rescuing people, it make your hair stand up for sure. But we're thankful for the support when it comes. There'll be many discussions about the financial support for sure. And we'll just keep moving forward. Are
there some specific resources that Nova Scotia does need from the federal government at this very moment?
Yeah, I think right now the urgency was finding people, keeping people safe. We're still kind of moving forward and looking for 4 people, but we'll continue to do that. So I think as we move forward, I've had calls from a number of premiers reaching out. What can we do to help? And there's a lot of rebuilding to do. We're in the heart of construction season. There's not a lot of excess capacity, but I have to tip my hat to the public works teams who are moving resources around, the private contractors who are stepping up here. So, and I'm sure we'll have discussions with other premiers in the federal government about heavy equipment and resources as we move through this. But as I say, all those things are working themselves out, and we'll move forward. To them.
Well, Premier, I know that you are extraordinarily busy, and so we do appreciate you taking out some time to provide us with that update from the ground. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me. Thanks for the support for Nova Scotia. We appreciate it.
That is Tim Houston. He is the Premier of Nova Scotia.